8 million, like it doesn't sound like that big of a number, but for a small country like Canada,
on a percentage basis,
8 million
is
massive.
significant for Canada.
And then when you factor in just the common sense reality that we don't have enough houses as it is, where are these people going to live?
On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about the future of Canadian real estate. And a few of the factors that are significant drivers of that are immigration, government policy. What else?
Yeah, I mean,
those are the two biggest ones.
Yeah, that's basically the main drivers here that are going to push the market higher over the coming 20, 30 years. But so we'll take kind of a broad view. And basically, I guess my point here on the podcast is people that are investing in Canadian real estate should feel very confident owning property here over the next 20 to 30 years because of the projected population growth, because of our policies, because of the livability of Canada as a whole, and the demand for for immigrants to come to this country is insatiable. Basically, we could grow our population as much as we wanted because people want to live in Canada. So we can kind of get into all those factors, and let's start with number one. Like it's not hard to project demand for future real estate when you understand two basic principles, which is supply versus projected population growth. So right now across Canada, there's not enough housing. Is the population of Canada going to be higher in 20 to 30 years than it is now?
Well, let's talk about number one, that article that you just sent me.
Yeah, so it's not.
We'll post it too. We'll post a link in the description
we'll post
below.
a link to it, but it's
Jesse, put like a screenshot up on it.
It's very simple math. This is the Canadian government's projections as well for Canada's population over the next, I think they got like 30 years in here. But so I'll just read it right from the website. According to selected scenarios, the population by 2036 in Canada will be between 40 and 47 million people. So we're currently at about 37 million plus or minus. Let's split the difference there, and let's say that we hit something like 44 million by 2036. That's an increase of what, 6, 7, 8 million people. 8 million, like it doesn't sound like that big of a number, but for a small country like Canada,
on a percentage basis, 8 million is massive. Significant for Canada.
And then when you factor in just the common sense reality that we don't have enough houses as it is, where are these people going to live? Yeah. Okay. And then we also factor in that replacement costs, land costs, and building costs are incredibly high, and all the new supply is going to be expensive. You can see how this housing crisis really has no hope of really being fixed. As an investor, this is just logic, right? Like I always say,
I think one of the important factors is the housing crisis has almost no shot of being fixed simply because, especially because of government policies and the restrictions that they 100%. Have. So
the only way to combat this would be to build a massive amount of housing very quickly and to keep pace with the population growth,
which the government does not allow us to do.
They do the exact opposite. Yeah. So, and that's just by 2036. So if we go further into this,
is it actually explained in they project out further?
Yeah. Wow. So by 2061, they have a projection of 43 million to 63 million. So that's a pretty broad projection.
63 million?
63 million. Like, they have an aggressive case scenario, base case, and low case. So again, if you split the difference between 40 and 63, you come up with something like 50, whatever. Yeah. Again, 50 million people, that's almost a double of our current population. And again, we have a government that doesn't understand business and it's almost like they don't want anybody to get rich. So they don't want developers to get rich. They want to put restrictions on them. They want to tax everybody to the hilt where you just can't do anything cheaply. So because of that socialist ideology, everything's going to be expensive. So I always say I'm not an optimist or pessimist. I'm a realist. Realistically, if you have a growing population that's possibly going to double in the next 30 years with realistically what our government, how they operate this country, realistically, we can expect prices to be significantly higher in the next 30 years than they are now. Now, we always hear the old saying like, oh, prices can't keep going up, right? And I mean, I understand why people say that because at some point it gets a little bit ridiculous. But in reality, like if you would have said 30 years ago that the average sale price in the GTA would be 1.1 million or whatever it is, people would have been like, no way, in 30 years, that's not going to happen. What are we going to be saying in 30 years about Canadian real estate? Like, is it possible that the average sale price is 2 million, 2.5 million with inflation and all these other things? $1 million now isn't what it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, if you're a millionaire, like you're done for life. You're set for life. If you're a millionaire now,
doesn't go as far.
I don't think you're really set. I think you got to keep working.
Yeah,
you got to 2, 3, 4, 5 million.
too. Yeah, I guess on your lifestyle too. But yeah, it's just not enough.
It's significantly less buying power than it was before. So when we see $1 million, like we're on the path to $1 million average sale price in Windsor in the next 10, 20 years, easily. Maybe
I think that's a stretch. Even I think it's going to happen before that.
The $1 million price range in Windsor right now is the most competitive market. There's 16 offers on a $1.1 million property in LaSalle last night.
Are 16 you offers. Serious?
16. So yeah, it's become the most competitive.
Wow.
Yeah, because all those people that have sold their $700,000 house that they bought for $300,000 now have $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 to go put down. It's no big deal, right?
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's those $1 million prices are skyrocketing, right? Last year, that place would have sold for, I don't know, maybe $700,000, $800,000. Now it's going to be 1.5 million, right? Like we're seeing, one of my clients told me that they estimated the value of their house increased by $100,000 or $200,000 over 2 weeks. And they're in a $1 million kind of neighborhood. In
Where's
2
that?
weeks, like the Seven Lakes area.
Really?
So in 2 weeks, right? But that's what's happening here. Now, this has already happened in many other cities, not just in Canada, but across the world, right?
Yeah.
You go to certain cities in Australia, you go to West BC, you go anywhere in the GTA. This has been happening globally for a long time. So Windsor people are like, oh, this is crazy. This can't happen in Windsor. This doesn't make sense. But yes, it can.
It already happens.
Yeah. It's already happened.
It's already happened.
And it's happening. But people think like this is going to run out sometime soon. Well, it hasn't stopped in Toronto for 20 years. Yeah. It's never stopped in like Sydney, Australia.
Fuck, did you even see the info coming out about the Toronto condo market? How it's like already recovered?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's common sense, right? So you leave your condo, where are you going to go live?
Yeah.
You're going to buy a single family house in the GTA? Good luck.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So eventually that's going to correct itself. It corrected itself much more quickly than even I thought. Yeah. But I figured it would correct itself. Mm-hmm. And then, there's a shortage of housing across Ontario. You literally have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You literally have nowhere to go. And then housing's a basic human need. So you're going to go live somewhere. So just think logically here. Population is going to be higher in 30 years, significantly. We have no supply. Prices will be higher in 30 years than they are now. And whenever I'm buying a piece of real estate, that's always in the back of my mind is 30 years, 20 years, 30 years. What's the projection of our current market? Now let's talk about, as much as we complain about Canada, where people want to live is all relative, right? I'm going to compare, if I'm going to try to emigrate out of my country and I'm going to choose somewhere to go, where are you going to choose, right? Are you going to choose somewhere that's welcoming to immigrants, that makes them, we have a melting pot kind of ideology where you can come here and sorry, not a melting pot. Yeah, melting pots. Yeah, so you come in, you integrate into society. Nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
You can practice your religion. You can do whatever you want. So it makes immigrants feel welcome. I bet you it's not the same in other countries, right? Even in the U.S., it's not the same. That I think that's going to change, but
I don't think a lot of people actually realize this though. Canada is actually more difficult to immigrate to than the U.S.
I remember you saying this. I found that kind of hard to believe, but yeah,
it actually is.
Do you have any reasons for that?
I don't have reasons, but I've actually because we have hired immigrants in the past, and you actually have to, if you're immigrating into Canada, you actually have to fall, like it's like a point system, I heard. So I haven't looked into it too much, but at the end of the day, that is what I have heard.
And we can understand, I'll
give you an example. Let me give you an example.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So for example, if you are a certain age, you get a specific amount of points. If you are docked, you either get points or you get docked points. I don't exactly know what it is. But if you're a specific age, If you're younger, you're more likely to be accepted. If you're higher educated, you're more likely to be accepted. If you're a student or whatever, like there's certain caveat, or I even think it comes down to like what country it is. Like it's actually fairly difficult to actually immigrate into Canada.
Yeah. And you got to think too.
And I don't mean like difficult in terms of like, I shouldn't say difficult. I should say that the Canadian government only allows or only wants to allow or historically or whatever has put things in place where the people coming into the country they want, the Canadian government actually wants them to be able to contribute.
Yeah.
And which is actually amazing.
Yeah. A sound decision by the government. One of the few.
Yeah. And I don't, again, that might be actually, I might be completely.
No, you're probably right. We probably get the best immigrants from around the world. It's probably a very strong immigration program. And the reason is because we don't have a big population. So they can only let so many people in. Sure. In the US, they can probably let in 10 times more people. Yeah. Because you have so much more
resources
land, and possibility. Like you can go to 52 different states.
Yeah.
You know, in Canada, we don't have that many cities to go to. We don't have enough housing and all those things. So they have to be strict on their policy, although they've gotten a little bit loose. Yeah. Not in terms of the quality, but in terms of the quantity of people. Yeah. So that's another
quality too. The problem is like from what it seems like a lot of the people that are coming into the country, they're not being vetted.
Yeah, I don't
know if that's the case or not, but that's what it seems like.
Well, I know there are certain things, like I know they've really loosened the student program where people are coming over.
US?
No, in Canada.
Oh, okay.
So you can get here pretty easily on a student visa.
Okay.
And these students that come here from these other countries, they come here to live, right?
Yeah. They're not going back.
Enter on a student visa. Yeah. Now, that's still pretty good. You're still coming here and going through a 4-year education program. You obviously speak English. You obviously have a work ethic and that type of thing. But, I'm not here to argue the policy.
Yeah.
My point is you're letting in 400,000 people a year in a system where we don't have enough houses and where Canadians are fighting for jobs. And now you have more competition from non-Canadian natural citizens. That's the debate, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't give a damn one way or another. As a real estate investor, what does that tell me? Let's start buying real estate. We don't have enough. And then the projected population growth and the projected supply shortage gives me confidence to own those properties. And I love what you said too. Like we get the best immigrants. Again, people think that there's two different programs. There's a refugee program where you can come from a war-torn country or whatever have you, and Canada will take you in, a certain number of people. Yeah, we do have refugees that come in, but most of our immigration policy is, like you said, it's very strict.
Which I didn't know either. I didn't actually realize that, to be quite honest.
And mathematically, I think these people are, as a government, they're saying, hey, if we bring in this many people, our GDP will grow X, Y, or Z. It's going to increase productivity. It's going to increase the labor force. It is an investment from a country. The problem is we just don't have enough housing.
Yeah.
So they didn't combat their immigration policy with a housing strategy. And they still haven't.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
And a lot of people argue, I've heard this argument too, when comparing to the US and, Canada actually has a larger landmass overall and this and that, but Canada has a larger landmass overall, but Canada has a lot of unusable land.
Unusable. It's
unlivable.
People don't want to live.
No, you can't. Like it's like fucking Arctic. Like who the fuck?
And you got to think too. It's not easy. You don't have the infrastructure in these random pieces of land. You can't. You have to expand your cities. You can't just go build a new city, right? Because there's no infrastructure. It would be cost prohibitive. You can't do it. So we only
live in a fucking igloo or something like that. Like that might be possible.
100%. But we don't have a lot of cities here. So, and that's another benefit for owning real estate. Like you can just own real estate anywhere across Canada, and there's probably not enough supply. Pretty much. Now, again, I'm going to focus on good cities or cities with potential. I'm not going to typically go some small town because they don't have major population drivers. And
the fundamentals don't exist.
And population, people got to think too, it not only drives it doesn't only drive prices, it drives rent too over time, right? So, a lot of these smaller cities, you go there and you initially get higher cash flow because your prices are cheaper, but the rents rise more slowly. Your prices rise more slowly. Well, these other cities are like accelerating both rents and appreciation much more quickly. You make way more money in the bigger cities than you do in the smaller cities over 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, of course.
People don't have that perspective, generally speaking, but
yeah. So what about talking about the increased rates? So this is like a big thing right now. People are talking about
interest rates.
Yeah, interest rates. people are talking about, oh my God, the market's going to crash. They're increasing interest rates. And I'm just like, guys, like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Like 25 basis points? Like, you think the market's going to crash 25 fucking basis points?
This is what,
or is it the rates? The rates are increasing a little bit.
Rate.
And the qualifying rate as well.
Rate.
Yeah. So, but also, and then the stress test is also increasing a little bit too.
Yeah, that is the stress test basically.
The qualifying rate. Okay. So I did talk to, the banks that I work with considerably with. They are talking about like, the rates are increasing or have increased. I don't know if they have or they did it. I think they did, right?
They will. They will, but here's what people fear.
I don't remember exactly if they said they did or they will.
The banks are increasing the rates slowly, but here's what people think is going to happen. They think the Bank of Canada, who sets the rates, are going to come out and like raise them to 5 or 6% overnight.
Yeah,
that's what they think, and then they're going to crash the economy.
No.
Do you think that the federal government wants the economy to crash?
They don't want the economy to crash under anybody's watch. If you actually even notice, and maybe I'm wrong with saying this, but it seems to be that whenever like this kind of shit happens too, it's right around election time. They'll start pulling out like really weird shit. So that if it works really well and they lose the election, they can blame it on the fact like, you see what I mean? Like they can play like both sides, right? And then if somebody comes into a shit show, then they just blame it on the party that left them with the shit show. But if it really works, then the party that lost can say, oh my God, well, the economy's doing really well because of us instituting this. So it's a mess. So I don't expect anything to happen at least for another couple of years, number one.
Well, they've already announced that they don't plan on raising rates.
No, and even in the announcements that they're announcing, it's not enough to change anything.
No,
it really isn't. And even if it does change anything, the people that can't fucking afford houses, what are they going to do?
Rent.
They're going to rent.
And end of story.
So what does it matter?
Yeah, people are under this, like, again, you know how many times I've heard, like, oh, back in, 1980s, they raised rates to 17%, and they think that's going to happen again.
Yeah, how fucking long did that take?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter how long it took. It's just not going to happen again.
Yeah.
It's not going to fucking happen again. We're in a different world.
Well, even if it does, how long did that actually take?
I don't know, and I don't care because it's not going to happen.
I'm super curious. Let's fucking see.
And I posted a quote the other day where it was like, the poor people tend to stay trapped in the past, and wealthy people are busy like predicting the future. Yeah. So people that are predicting this 17% interest rate rise, again, you're just trapped in what happened in the past time. You're not looking forward to trying to predict what will happen.
Yeah.
And if you think rates will ever go up to that level again, I think
1935 till today. So 1978, they were 8.2%. And in 1981, so it did actually increase considerably in 2 years. 1981, they were 21.25%, but they actually decreased faster than they increased. In 1983, they came back down to 11.5%, and they have been historically under 5% since 2010, 11 years. Like, what are we talking about here? And even around, let's say 2001, we're talking about 4%. It jumped up 2007, 2008 to 6.25. Still not enough. Like, that's not a big increase. Like a 1 or 2% increase is not big. So since 2001 to 2021, so 20 years, it's been around 5%. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like
which is digestible for most people.
For sure.
And let me tell you why it's digestible.
The fucking stress test is
the banks are already qualifying you at 5.25.
For sure, exactly. So it's not even a factor.
So let's say it does go up to 5. That's possible. It's not going to go to 17 or 10, or they're not going to do something to crash the economy.
Well, if you look at, like, that was the only time it ever even around then was like in the 80s. Around in the 80s, the 80s. Over the course of like almost a fucking 100-year period, 80 years, it was only in the 80s that it increased to even remotely over 10%.
Yeah.
That was it. And it was only a blip in history.
That was an anomaly. That's not normal, and it's not ever going to happen. What's normal is 5%.
Yeah.
Or so, plus or minus, right?
Exactly.
So fine, go ahead and predict that. But
Yeah.
the fundamentals of real estate don't change with that, which goes back to supply and demand.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. And
Yeah.
as long as supply and demand is out of whack, prices will rise. End of story. So you would have to raise rates to such a prohibitive level that people can't afford housing. But like you said, okay, say they do that. I'm a real estate investor. They've raised rates to 5%. I'm fine. I got 30 properties. I can still go buy more. Who gets hammered by those policies? The middle class and the poor people. And they're going to go rent. I just leased my own personal residence because I'm moving. I had it on the marketplace. You know how many calls I got from good people? 50 or 60 in 2 or 3 days.
Really? Eh?
And I got a nurse and another person with a good job that are moving in, a young couple. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, frick, why don't you just go buy them? I'm like, oh yeah, the average sale price here is $600,000. Maybe they don't want to, like they're,
Did you actually ask him that?
No, I didn't. But it doesn't matter, but like, I hear that all the time, right? I was, one of the people that came to look at it said to me, now's not the time to buy. I was waiting before and I kind of missed out. And I think she thought that it was an anomaly like 2 or 3 years ago that prices will slow down. You know what? Like, I bet your parents said something.
Yeah.
All these non-experts come in and tell their kids, oh yeah, now's not the time, wait for the market to crash. And they don't listen to like reason. And she basically missed her window and she had a good job too. And now she's out renting. She'll probably never afford a house on a single income unless you go to a small town, which most people aren't willing to do. So she might be a lifetime renter and she's got a 750 credit score. She makes good income and she won't be able to buy a house. Now, there's going to be so many people like that in the future. You're going to have such a good tenant pool to choose from in Canada because of the market imbalances that like I want to own many rental properties as possible. So that's Canada specifically. And then, we always like to touch on the States because we're, trying to diversify and look over there.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening in Canada right now. Take it and plop it over to the States because it's
going to
happen.
Yeah. We're like 5-10 years ahead of the curve.
Yeah. In terms of immigration policies, socialist policies, red tape, restrictions. But the big one's really the immigration policy. Again,
in the U.S.?
Yes, yeah. I think it's huge. Like I said, Trump shut it down. It was hard to go work over there. It was hard to come from a different country. It was hard to get a student visa. He really was for protecting the borders. And that slows population growth.
Yeah.
And population growth drives real estate prices. We know that the new administration is the complete opposite. Again, not here to debate immigration policy. Don't care. But I do want to take advantage of it. And what one of the other main drivers is restrictions.
Yeah.
Red tape.
Yeah.
And taxation.
Yeah. These are all policies that end up getting put in place by a typical socialist style government, which is what we have in Canada. And we might just be ahead of the curve or even of a different mindset than a typical American because we see what it's done to our country and we can see it happening over in the U.S. It's materializing. It's fucking rearing its ugly head over in the U.S. as well. So that's why we're like so motivated to do things over in the U.S.
because we can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, we see the writing on the wall over there.
They haven't realized it yet. We have. And our conversations with people down there told us that.
Yeah.
Oh, I just had a bidding war when I was trying to buy my house. So it'll slow down though, they said, right? Yeah. It's just, I think it's going to cool down. I think one of them said, I'm just going to wait and then buy something next year. The same thing we've been hearing for a decade here. And we're like, oh shoot, we're still early here.
Yeah.
Good. Because they don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know what's coming.
Exactly.
And also, the pandemic fueled a shift in people's way of living and mindset. And that's forever.
Yeah.
Because once I realized I don't have to be tied to my city, I don't have to be tied to my job, I don't have to be tied to my condo in downtown Manhattan where I'm paying $3,000 a month for 700 square feet. I don't have to be tied to this bad weather. People's minds have been freed from their enslavement to a location.
Yeah.
And they become more mobile. And that's why Windsor's blown up and everywhere outside the GTA along the corridor. And the same thing's happening in the US. Well, where are they going? Well, we can find out. The data is readily available.
Yeah.
We know where they're going. They're going south. They're going where it's warm. They're going where there's no state tax. They're going, like, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
And again, we're not, like, this is just so obvious to people.
It's super logical.
Yes, but people, investors that are inexperienced are not logical. They're emotional and they're still full of fear. just invest on logic. Like go buy real estate in these states. That's cash flow positive and in your price range. If you can.
Yeah.
And if you can't, partner with us.
Yeah.
Like pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we said, it's not that easy to do it. But
No.
I don't know. Am I off base here? Like
No. It's just happening. It's as simple as that. What's happened already in Canada and what's continuously happening in our country is happening across the border. And it's this pandemic has essentially almost like exposed it. It actually has exposed it almost to some extent.
I agree. Yeah.
So,
big time. So I think Canada and US, when we zoom out and say, what's the long-term trajectory for real estate in both of these countries? Like over 20 or 30 years, just factor it in. No supply. US is 2 to 4 million homes short. We know we're chronically short in Canada.
Yeah.
And
that's another thing too that we didn't touch on. Like US has a significant higher a significant higher shortage than Canada does, even on a percentage basis.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy given the population there.
Yeah, they actually are. They're significantly higher.
So significant shortage, and then you can pinpoint those spots pretty easily. And then you combine that with the pandemic shift from people moving to those certain places. And then just like we talk about it all the time, it's so obvious. You got oceanfront property, Florida, you got great weather, you got cheap real estate. Relatively, I think the average price of Florida is like $300,000. Yeah, cheaper than Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah. So the way that I look at both countries and even both, even when you compare, say, even Windsor to, doesn't even matter, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, or whatever the case is. When you actually look at that on a per unit basis, it's all relative. It's all relative to where you're from. Places in the U.S., they're on sale to me, like significantly. They're like 50% on sale.
They're on sale, and they should be more.
Yeah,
they should.
They have stronger fundamentals. They have
better location.
Yeah,
globally.
Globally. So it's pretty wild to me, and that's one of the reasons why we're over there.
Yeah, and probably higher returns too, especially now, and especially for the large stuff.
Yeah,
so
for sure. But overall, like the appreciation we're seeing in Canada is outrageous. I mean, it's will that continue? I don't know, but I mean, like what did we see? Like a 43% appreciation year over year?
Windsor specifically, 43% year over year.
That's insane.
It's wild.
That is insane.
It honestly is.
Like it will get to the point where it won't cash flow. Like it won't. It just won't. Yeah. Like people aren't going to pay $5,000 in rent. Like something has to happen, and that what's going to happen is like very interesting. Like you and I were talking about. Like
I'll say this though, like because of the fundamentals of rent drivers as well, because rents are rising really quickly now. I bet you rents are rising at a similar pace, percentage-wise. Similar. So because rents are rising in Windsor specifically, in correlation with prices, at some point it'll tip out, but rents are still relatively low relative to the rest of the market as well. So like this could take 5, 6, 7 years in Windsor for it to top out where you don't cash flow.
What I'm super curious about is how the government's going to. I'm starting to see a lot of comments on posts saying the government needs to step in, the government needs to shut this down, they need to control the rent, they need to do this, they need to do that.
Has the government showed any willingness to do that?
No, of course not. But will they? I don't know.
Good question.
Right? So will they go the route of like say a very socialist type of city like New York or LA or whatever, where they actually institute rent control versus say, for example, a government policy like Section 8 where they make up the difference to what somebody can or can't afford. So I mean, obviously Section 8 would be much better of a scenario.
Be very positive.
But it also doesn't seem like our government. I actually don't think our government would actually do something like that. That's the problem, because a Section 8 scenario is still kind of a little bit of like a capitalistic type of.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, it's like, but it's still like, it still like has this capitalistic kind of venture about it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that they would go that route.
Well, what would they do then?
I don't know.
What do you think they would do?
I'm almost thinking like in cities that. With everything going on, it would not surprise me in cities that are growing the fastest, they start doing rent control.
And what does that look like? You can't charge more than X?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it would be something like according to your average income of the surrounding area or the submarket or the market. I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but
that's
it would really kill things. It would affect a lot of things.
Here's the thing that people don't understand. Landlords provide an invaluable product to the market, which is rental properties, which are sorely needed, and we need way more of them. You come out and attack landlords and limit their ability to make rent or to make to make it profitable or to at least cover their costs. You're gonna hurt the renters.
Well, think about this. They've already hurt landlords. I'm owed like $80,000.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't evict people right now. So like you think they care?
Yeah.
They obviously don't. So they literally, you have our premier and prime minister coming out telling everybody that like, hey, you don't have to pay your rent, and landlords, you better not make them. Like that I don't have any confidence with that. Like,
yeah, but they're not hurting the renter there. They're hurting the landlord.
That's what I'm talking about.
But what
you
I'm
just
saying
said
is,
hurting the landlord.
No, I said hurting the renters, because if you hammer the people that produce the product, which is landlords, we're producing a product for you to rent. And if you make it so that I can't produce that product, I won't produce it, then the renters won't have anywhere to rent. They'll still won't be able to buy a house. So what I'm saying is they would be inadvertently hurting renters.
Yeah, in the
and landlords, but they would make it less. We need more rental properties.
I agree. I still don't think people in the short term would not buy real estate. That's what I'm saying. But in the long term, it would affect it significantly. People just go wherever they make money, and that's it. Or they change their investment strategy. That's it. But I do think Canada would opt in for something like that. Do I think it would stick? Probably not. Do I think they would try to come up with something different because they could see the writing on the wall, like what you're saying? Like, why the fuck would somebody buy a rental property if, like, you're not even literally making any money whatsoever? Like, it makes no sense.
Well, you would do it for appreciation.
Exactly.
And what we're talking about right now, the 30-year projection of Canadian real estate, you're probably still going to make pretty good money.
And who knows? Let's play devil's advocate. Maybe the government decides, hey, you know what? Everybody's making 30, 20%, say, call it 20, 25% year over year on their rental properties. Who gives a fuck if the landlords aren't making their cash flow? Who cares? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. That's like the problem with me is our government has fucked up so much that having like a rent control scenario just wouldn't surprise me. That's the problem.
Here's the thing: they would screw that up too, and then landlords would find a way to profit off it somehow.
Of course, but again, it still wouldn't surprise me if they put something in there.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Or maybe one policy would go in there, then they change it because it fucked up, or like who knows what, right? They do this and they backpedal. I don't know, but at the end of the day, like we clearly have fucking idiots running our country. Yeah. So from this perspective, it's hard to say. Like, would they do it? I don't know. Maybe. That'd be worst case scenario. But I could see it happening.
Yeah, I could spin something like this. Okay, you put rent control properties. Sorry, you put rent controls and you limit landlords' ability to make money. Less landlords supply the rental properties to the market. That makes less rental properties on the market. That drives up rental amounts across the board.
I agree, but here's the thing too. Like, it's not like this doesn't exist. Like, this exists.
But in what form?
I don't know the exact form.
Yeah, we got to figure that out.
Yeah, I'd love to figure this out because, like, this does exist.
Yeah,
like, rent control exists. And what's crazy, too, is rent control exists in literally typically the hottest markets.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and the properties still go up fucking significantly in value.
Because those rent control properties have adverse effects. There will be a counter force to that, and it'll make less supply. It'll drive demand. Just like the 1031 exchange. Mm-hmm. You go after me one way, well, it's going to drive. I'm not going to liquidate my property. It's going to make my property more expensive. I'm going to make more money on appreciation. And sometimes you make more money on appreciation than you do in rent, by the way, because you have leverage. All the time. Mostly. People need to understand this.
I didn't in the first fucking 5 years of investing, but at the end of the day.
Appreciation is underappreciated.
Yeah.
Way underappreciated in the investor community because everybody and their mother on YouTube is saying don't invest for appreciation, which I generally agree with, but you need to appreciate it because you have leveraged 5-to-1 leverage returns on appreciation. Windsor's market just increased 40%. What's 5 times 40%? It's 200%. So my property that's worth $300,000, I only put $60,000 down. Now it's worth $550,000. I just made 200% on my $60,000 or rough numbers, whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. So I didn't double my money. I tripled it. Mm-hmm. 5-to-1 leverage. Maybe even 5 times that. I don't know. But either way, right? So whenever the government does one thing, it always counterbalances in another way, and I just go make money that way.
Of course, right? But like, let's be honest. Who does the government usually pander to?
We always talk about this, dude. It's double speak. They pander to. They tell the middle class and poor one thing, but their policies actually make the rich richer, which is what's happening right now. So that's what I'm saying. They're coming out.
And maybe they're too fucking naive to actually realize that if they do a rent control scenario, it's actually just going to force appreciation.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, but here you have here where it is, the lower and middle class are going to praise them for it. That's the fucking problem. They don't see it. They don't fucking see it. They're incapable of seeing it.
You're bang on. And I love it. I love it because I used to fight these policies. Oh, this is stupid. They shouldn't be doing this. Now I'm like, you know what? Keep doing it. I got all these rental properties.
Your fucked up shit helps us.
Good. Yeah. And you keep voting for these guys. You know, keep voting for these policies.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. I'll make more money, even if I don't necessarily agree with it.
If anybody is listening to this and is in the middle class or, you know, the lower middle class or the lower class, whatever, and you're asking for the government to help you out, the government will fuck you so hard.
Yeah.
And you won't even know it.
No, not they will. They are.
They are too.
Yeah. Right
yeah. And like the government is incapable of doing anything correctly or good.
Yeah. Who got hammered in this pandemic? Small businesses.
Yeah.
Who's a small business owner? It's like you're not the most successful. You know, running a restaurant is already difficult to be super profitable.
Yeah.
You got smoked. Your little mom and pop shop on the corner got absolutely smoked while I order everything from Amazon and Walmart.
Yeah.
They're open. So you got, again, those policies have hammered you, yet you're still generally manipulated to vote for those policies. And this is another thing too. The government always talks about going after the rich, but they don't actually do it. They don't actually do it. They just do it on paper. They just make people think they're going after rich. Those policies don't really affect the rich.
No.
They actually end up backhandedly affecting the poor. Now, here's the thing. Actually, like the previous administration under Trump actually helped the poor and middle class while also helping, you know, in a lot of ways, also helping wealthy people and landlords. Like everybody kind of gets better, right? It creates more economic opportunity and equality, and everybody kind of gets more wealthy together. Yet everybody's attacking him as making the rich richer, when in reality, look what's happening right now under these socialist policies. It's actually the exact reverse.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if these socialist policies weren't an advantage for us. Like I actually want them to happen over there so that we can take advantage of them.
Which is real estate prices are going to skyrocket.
Which is sad, and I actually don't want to see it. Yeah. I don't want to see it happen. It's not my belief system. But if it's going to happen, there's nothing you can really do about it. You might as well take advantage of it.
Which side do you want to be on?
Yeah.
You want to be on the middle class side that's getting absolutely burned by inflation and rising prices and lower buying power and the inability to buy a house and increase your lifestyle? Or do you want to be the asset owners that are getting more and more wealthy off of socialist policies that make it very difficult to build, create, and basically cause inflation by lower supply, higher taxation? Why do you think gas right now is $1.33? Well, because of the carbon tax and because we can't pump our own oil here. Same within the U.S., right? Like they shut down a lot of the oil fields, and now we import everything, and it raises costs. Like it's common sense. So which side of the fence do you want to be on? And then let's talk about minimum wage.
And who are they pandering to with even the oil and gas and everything?
Yep.
Same
generally
people.
the middle class that is pro environment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like shut it down.
Yeah.
Not realizing like you're getting that's a heavy tax that you don't even realize that you're paying it. But your gas bill just went up 25-30% for this year, and then your natural gas bill and then your utility costs go up, and you're getting burned. But the rich are getting richer. They don't care, right? 20% increase in my gas bill doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
It's a very small percentage of my income or wealth or whatever.
Yeah.
But for you, that's a more significant percentage. So like, you know, keep doing what you're doing. So the point is to help you to get on the other side of this fence or to continue getting burned. And then I just mentioned minimum wage as well. Like that's coming in the U.S.
What do you think that's going to do to real estate prices?
Oh my goodness. And rental prices.
Yeah, it's going to be insane.
That might cause a double over a decade. Just that alone. Because in Florida, you'd be doubling minimum wage from 7 to 15.
Yeah. And that's a federal thing. That can't happen.
It can happen.
It can,
yes, yeah. So minimum, yeah. So states have a lot of power, but that is a federal thing. That money always finds its way into assets, always, because that same amount of money, right? The government's printing money right now and giving money to everybody. That money always goes into assets. So a $15 minimum wage doubling people's buying power is going to go into real estate, businesses. It's going to go to Walmart, Amazon, small businesses, restaurants, and it's going to go into rent and people buying houses.
Look at what it did over here. When minimum wage went up 22%, like overnight, remember that?
Yeah, massive
like
percentage increase.
Skyrocketed in value here. Yeah. Like skyrocketed.
It also skyrocketed inflation and cost of goods. So everything. It actually, again, smoked the middle class and the poor more than anything. Although the middle class think, oh yeah, like my kid works at McDonald's. He's going to be making $15 an hour now. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, go liberals. Yeah, let's vote liberal. That's awesome. And people that understand these policies and how to take advantage of them are also like, yeah, go liberals. I'm going to go buy more real estate. Now, I didn't understand this before. I didn't understand inflation. I didn't understand these policies and how they impact real estate. And that's the point of this podcast, is so you can understand them and then get on the right side of that, of that fence. So I disagree with the policies. I think they hurt the country. I think they hurt the average Canadian citizen.
They hurt the people.
But they help the wealthy asset owners and business owners. Like that minimum wage increase, if they did it in the States, how much of that would find its way into Canadian protein, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Like, what percentage of people work out at the gym? Yeah. You know, like, and now they got an extra $300-400 a month to spend. You think they're going to go invest that? Yeah. No, they're going to spend it. It's just the way it is. So it goes back into the economy. Yeah. And it drives everything higher. If you don't own a business or assets, then you're on the wrong side of the fence. Right? So I guess the point here is that like the long-term fundamentals of North American real estate, Canada and US, is like incredibly strong because of inflation, socialist government policies, lack of supply, rising minimum wages based on those policies. And what else? Yeah, no,
it really comes down to
population growth.
Yeah, it really comes down to government policies and
then basic fundamentals of supply and demand.
Like all of those little factors can be all tied back to, immigration is a government policy, the socialist type of, strategies is a government policy, the restrictions, the red tape for development, that's a government policy. Like these are all, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal, it doesn't really matter. It's all government. It's all.
You need to take those policies and then filter them through. How is this going to impact supply and demand? That's what this is all about. Increase minimum wage, increase demand.
Here's what it can be tied to. A socialist government wants bigger government. And when you have bigger government, I see it in companies all the time. So with our 1 second. Jesse, where are we?
45 minutes.
Okay, we're good. Okay. So I see this all the time with our like Canadian protein and our contract manufacturing. To get something done with the larger companies takes forever. It has to go through 84 people.
100%.
And nothing can get, we're working with one company right now. It's a fairly larger company it's not in our country, but it's a different country. It's been like 16 months to try to launch their product line. And we're like, how the fuck is it taking this long? It's outrageous. I actually had to tell them, like, listen, you have to get going here or I have to stop working with you. This is insane. But they're a huge company. And they have so much red tape and they're so big, it's got to go through all these different channels and this and that. So the government works the exact same way. So when you have a socialist government,
the government just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, the government keeps on getting bigger. They're trying to enforce power on the people, and that's what ends up happening. Nothing can fucking get done. I don't actually think, maybe they do or maybe they don't, but maybe they don't even mean to restrict the population, right?
It's a good
maybe
point,
they don't even mean to do it. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, they're so incompetent. They have so many people that are incompetent that they can't fucking help it.
Yeah.
So it naturally gets restricted.
Another thing too, I always say this, if I go to the city of Windsor right now and try to get building permits or whatever, you think the person behind that counter cares?
Oh, like they don't
to a certain extent. You're on a pension and you get paid and you can't get fired basically when you work for the government. So, and it's not for profit. So that organization is not a for-profit organization, and you feel it when you walk into these government places.
They don't give a shit.
Nobody cares because you don't get paid for your performance.
You thought you worked for the government.
I worked for it, and I worked at the headquarters of the CBSA in Ottawa for 3 years. We had meetings where we would go in for an hour and then just all we got accomplished was to reschedule the meeting. And that went on for months.
Are you serious?
For months. Nothing got done.
Wow.
People are making decisions that don't have anything to do or understand our job at all. And the decisions are coming from people that don't know what we actually do every day. Wow. Like, it's actually insane. So it was insane. That's why I had to leave. I couldn't understand it.
Wow. And then, so that's a perfect insight that you worked for the government. And do people think that's any fucking different at any other different type of part of the government? It's all the fucking same shit. Yeah. If anything, it's even fucking worse, right?
Because I would go into work every day and I get paid the same no matter what.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter my level of productivity. Mm-hmm. That guy can do 10 times more work than me. I get paid the exact same.
Yeah.
I can take a 45-minute lunch instead of a 30-minute, get paid the same.
Yeah. So you almost have a scenario where naturally, when you have an environment like that, you are naturally going to be, I guess, enticed by this carrot that I was using like a carrot as an example.
Carrot and a stick.
Yeah, fucking carrot and a stick to see who can do the least amount of shit. And get paid the exact same. Yeah. You see what I mean? Because why the fuck
it devolves?
Yeah, why would you?
Productivity devolves.
Why would you do any more if you're not going to get paid?
You're not.
So on the flip side of this, on like a non-socialist government, you have a scenario where they want to restrict government policies and pull back on government intervention.
Let the free market
the private sector to take over, which is
because they're
always
hyper efficient. Because it's for profit.
Exactly. So you have a scenario where you end up, the people of the country end up benefiting because the person paying for the benefit also gets it. And then you also have a situation where the government, lost my train of thought here.
They step out of the way. The government
the government.
They're there to provide a basic playing field.
Yeah.
And to protect certain roles. But in general, they're out of the way because the private sector is hyper efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
Government.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So whenever you have, it creates competition, and competition drives down fucking prices and increases quality.
Yeah.
Done.
And increases productivity.
That's it. But that all plays in. Yeah. And that all plays into like the whole, whenever you have
big government is slow and it is inefficient. And when you understand that Canada has a big government, you can project out 30 years and say this housing problem will continue.
Our prime minister doesn't even make the fucking decisions in our country.
Yeah,
it's got to go back to fucking the crown. Like, what the fuck? So exactly. So you have a situation where in our country, it's fucking too big, it's too bloated, it's run by incompetent people. So you have a situation where there's a limited amount of competition. We see it in predominantly our cell phone industry, where you only have like really big three. We've actually blocked U.S. carriers from coming over here. Okay, we've restricted it. Canada is what? One of the highest, I think it's like the second highest cell phone. We have the second highest cell phone bills, or contracts or whatever in the entire world. Yeah, the fuck is that about?
We're telling you what it's about.
Exactly. Right? It's because of competition. Canada's restricting its competition. How about airlines? I don't know. Air Canada? The fuck?
Yeah.
Like, why does it cost me fucking $1,700 to fly to Florida, and if I drive half hour to Detroit, it costs me $130?
Yeah.
Like,
we're telling you why.
That's no sense. Yeah. Exactly. What it is it's competition. The U.S. allows competition. Canada restricts it. Yeah. So what we're saying is Canada, we're just 5-10 years ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
We can see the writing on the wall. That's happening over there.
Yeah, definitely. So heavy restrictions.
So again, when you have bigger government, people should not want bigger government intervention. All these people talking about government intervention, you are hurting yourself long term. Maybe in the short term, you might think, like your minimum wage, that's great, went up to $14.25 or whatever the case is. That's all great, but you're fucking yourself. Yeah. Like the right answer is your worth. What?
Free market.
Yeah, exactly. You're worth what you're worth.
Yeah,
that's
the market
it.
Decides.
Exactly. The market decides what you're worth. And if you're worth shit, you get paid shit. If you're worth more value, then you get paid more value. It's
the only way to run a successful business or country.
And like you said, the only place that the government should have is to ensure there's no corruption, there's a fair playing field, or whatever the case is. That's it. They should not step in and dictate what you can and can't buy, what you can and can't make, all that, what you can and can't, or who you can and can't sell to. Like, no, they should not do that. Who can and can't come into the country, they should not do that. Force fucking competition, but here we are.
Yeah. Now, again, if you understand these policies, which side of the fence do you want to be on? Of
course.
Okay. The asset owners right now love this.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazon loves what's happening in the US. Keep the lockdowns going.
Why do you think these fucking big players are like siding with the governments they side with? Do you think it's a fucking mystery?
Yeah. And people need to understand as well, like Amazon, you know how much they spend on lobbying every year? Like to lobby government officials. You know how much like they're paying, like people are making money politically off these big corporations.
Why do you think he owns all these news outlets, Jeff Bezos? What do you think? What, because they make a ton of money? Yeah. No.
They control the airwaves.
Exactly, and they push agendas. That's it. It's fucking,
and their agenda right now, like, what do you think? You think Pfizer and Moderna don't want mandatory vaccinations?
Of course.
Like, they're going to make billions off this. Of course they're going to push that. Like, and I can't even fault them. I would too if I was a business owner.
I think I saw a thing about Pfizer that they were scheduled to make like $28 billion in like the first quarter of this year.
Yeah.
2021. I think it was something like that. Something stupid.
Yeah.
Like something fucking just simply based off that vaccine.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Like we're getting all these.
This is a business.
Yeah. We're getting all these free. The government's so like, oh, free. Everybody gets the vaccine. It's free. Nobody has to pay for it. Well, what about insulin and all these other things? Why aren't those free? Why doesn't the government cover the cost of those? Mm-hmm. It'd be cheaper than probably doing what they're doing now. Mm-hmm. Is it really the health? I don't know. But anyways, these policies are being pushed by big businesses that are benefiting from it. And if you're not on the right side of this, the business owners and the asset owners, then you're losing. Mm-hmm. You're on the losing team, basically. Sure. And it's not that hard to get on the other side. Just start owning assets.
No. Yeah.
Starting businesses.
You don't have to, I think it's clear, like, you and I don't like it, what's happening on like at the human level. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we don't have
investor level.
We don't have to like it.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah,
you can't fight it. Right? Like, what am I going to do? Go pick it on the street with a big sign? No, I'm going to go profit off of it. I'm going to go down to Florida, where the fundamentals are insane. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go down to Texas, Arizona, all these great states, and I'm going to profit off whatever government policy they happen to implement.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it.
Long term, at the end of the day, the government is the one that is dictating what's going on in these markets. And when you have the government dictating what's going on in these markets, this is the situation that you have. Skyrocketing asset values, that is it.
And I guess to wrap up, our point of this podcast was to look over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years at Canadian and US real estate and say, okay, what are prices going to be in 30 years? Mm-hmm. And if I buy something now, is it going to be more expensive in 20 to 30 years? And we're telling you yes, because of population growth, inflation, red tape, government policy is all pushing those asset prices higher. Mm-hmm. I always buy with a 20 plus year mentality, and I hold for that period of time as well. In 20 years, my real estate will be worth more than it is now. Stop waiting.
Yeah.
Stop waiting.
Trigger.